I hope that you are doing well this evening. I am your professor and instructor for this course, Neurophysiologic Development and Faith Work. I'm very, very excited to have you all on. We have a very, very big group, which means that I will go ahead and ask you to hit mute. I can look at a little list and see if you have muted yourself. So please, I definitely hear a lot of background noise, so I'm going to give you a second, whether you're on your iPad or you're on your phone or you're at home hanging out with your kids or your cats in the background. Definitely appreciate you all hitting mute. So I will go ahead and get started. There's a couple of housekeeping things I want to just address right up front. Again, if you could please mute your line, that would be fantastic. If you don't know how to mute, go ahead and hit the chat button, and I'll see. I think there's a number, a Nashville number, 615-202. What is that? 202-6242. You are not muted. If you could please mute yourself, that would be awesome. So a couple of housekeeping things right up front. These sessions say in the syllabus that they are required, and I very, very much hope that you all will make any kind of accommodations to your work schedule or your childcare schedule or whatever you need to do to see if you can go ahead and make sure that you prioritize these sessions. This is a really intense amount of information. We go over a lot in a very short period of time, and it is very much self-directed learning. And these Zoom sessions give you an opportunity to showcase what you have learned. And we'll talk about that a little more as we go through tonight's agenda. So I will not be taking formal roll, and attendance is not part of your grade, but I can pretty much promise you that if you do participate and come prepared each week, you will definitely be learning the material and will do better in class and do better on your quizzes. So, and just kind of do better overall. But that being said, I know that sometimes it's hard to get out of work or get out of work by 5:30 Central Time if you're in a different time zone. So just know that I will be recording these sessions, and I will be posting the links to the recorded sessions after, immediately following the meeting each night, and they will be posted under the module for that week. So this is the course Introduction and Resilience module, and the Zoom link was under this module, and then I will post the recorded Zoom under that module. So the next week when you're looking for your Zoom link, you can find it under the Unit 1 for Genetics and Epigenetics, and then that's where the recorded lecture will be posted as well. I just upload them to YouTube, and then I just post the link. So it should be really easy. A few other, just as an aside, I've gotten some questions about sort of the timeline for notifying you all about the Zoom sessions. And I just wanted to remind you all, and I know that you all are advanced standing, so this is all kind of coming at you all really quickly and things like that, and you may have missed something in the orientation. But the dates and times for the Zoom sessions for all of your online classes are posted months in advance. The one for this class was probably posted in kind of March or April, and so the ones for this coming fall, if you're interested, are already posted. And if you haven't found those yet, just know you don't have to wait for the syllabi to come out. It's you can find all those on our website, so not on Canvas, but on our website we have the course schedule posted, and you can just go and look up the semester and the course schedule and find your the sections for online, and then it will say in it's like kind of a grid you'll see, and it'll have those each time. So just want to put that all out, put that out there for you. And most of the time we get it right. Sometimes we do make some mistakes and there's a discrepancy or something. So just let us know if you ever see that. But we are we're only human. Okay, so we will be in class for about an hour. We may go a little over. I'm going to try to talk kind of fast and go over as much as possible. Feel free to jump in and ask me any questions. You can do that via chat. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and ask me a question. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see that? Just nod your head. All right, great. Okay. So this is 528, as I mentioned. It is 1 credit hour. I do not want you all to think that that means that there's not that much work to do, because it's just 1 credit hour, but this is essentially a 4 credit hour course, and you are just taking the first 4 weeks of that 4 credit hour course, and it is 1 credit hour because it's only 4 weeks. So it's not turning. Okay. So it is a lot of work, and we'll get into kind of the ins and outs and why and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit about me. If you have not perused the website and looked at my CV and stuff like that, I'll just be pretty brief here. I am your assistant professor of practice, which means that I have a history of working in the field, and I have been been working with the state of Tennessee in a variety of different capacities for probably like 16 years now, I think, and have joined the University of Tennessee College of Social Work in 2015. My areas of interest are neuroscience, which we will get into, of course, in this course. I'm talking about neurophysiology, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and resilience. I was formerly the State Children's Mental Health Director for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, and have a lot of passion around children's mental health and infant mental health in particular. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in Tennessee around those issues now. Also interested in interagency collaboration, organizational development, and public policy. So I really bring a very macro lens to this work, which I think that you all will see throughout the course. But I definitely set it up to have a healthy balance between, addressing those larger system issues with some of those micro issues that we're obviously looking at when we think about human development. So tonight, I'm just going to basically go over the course expectations and the syllabus. There is a whole lot of information in this slide deck. I've just updated it slightly, and you can find it if you printed it out yesterday or something like that, please go back and get the one from today. It says pretty much the same title. It just says online, and you'll see one for Nashville. So you'll just go ahead and download the one for online. So a little bit of a note about our timeline and kind of what we're doing. We only meet on Thursdays from 5:30 to 7:30. And what that's going to look like each week, this week will be a little different because we're just doing course introduction, and we're just kind of skimming the surface a little bit, but we'll really start diving into our course content next week. And so this week we will meet from 5:30 to about 6:30, and then next week, as you can see in the syllabus, we'll meet from 5:30 to 7. So our Zoom sessions will be 90 minutes. I have a time slot that I will do from 7 to 7:30 that I will use as kind of a overflow if we need to kind of get into that. But I'm really going to try to keep our Zoom sessions to 90 minutes. I feel like that's fair. Since we're meeting every week, and you all work and have families and all that good stuff. But I do, because this information is so dense and somewhat complex in a lot of areas, and maybe entirely new. I don't think it's going to be new to everybody, but I know for a lot of people it is new. And so I will just host just basically what I'm going to call open office hours from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Time immediately following our Zoom session. And I will not be recording those. So I will only record what I consider our main class for that 90 minutes. And then I will keep the Zoom session open. I will hit so I will no longer record, but then I'll just be there if you have any follow-up questions from that class, if you have any questions for the next week, or, are unsure about something or want some feedback about something, just know that I will always be there, just kind of hanging out for that time. If I see that everybody jumps off, I'll probably go ahead and jump off too, but I do plan to kind of keep that open. And so even for some reason, if you have a question and have to work or something and miss the main Zoom session, just know you can also log in at 7 p.m. each week for those office hours if you're interested. Oftentimes students have a lot of the same questions, so it may be helpful to just see what kind of questions other people have as well. So if you need to contact me, there's all my contact information. It's also available on Canvas. I'm really, my whole job here is to support your learning. And so, don't be worried about emailing me or calling me. If you need something or want some, one-on-one time or just want to follow up about anything, feel free to call me. Email is definitely the best way to get in touch with me. I try to respond within 24 hours during the week and 48 to 72 hours during the weekend. If for some reason I do not respond within that time, please email me back. I did not mean to miss your email. So sometimes I just do miss things. I think I have 84 students this first summer session, and love all of you equally, and will be happy to respond, but just sometimes know that I will miss those and I won't need to. So email me back if you don't hear from me. Okay, so I'd love to get into kind of the overall structure of this class and what my teaching methodology is. Because this information is so intense and we have such a short little time to get into it, which pains me greatly. I wish we could just hang out all summer, but we have this short little 1 credit hour to get through just some really, really critical stuff that's going to be important to really the rest of your time in this program and beyond. Anything in this program obviously is going to be relevant to your practice experience. And a lot of times you all may have practice experience that comes into play for, that you can really bring to the CTE discussions too. So that's always fun to hear about. So my overall teaching principle, I pretty much stole from the nursing field, which is see one, do one, teach one. And essentially what that means is it's an opportunity for you all to learn new information, apply that information, and then teach others what you learned. And it's what I found a really exceptional way to make sure in a very short period of time that you're really getting it, especially with all of this new, dense information, like I said. So the C1 part of this is you're going to be reading all of the required readings, you're going to be viewing the videos and the recorded lectures, you're going to be participating in the weekly lectures and reviewing all the slides. Oftentimes my slide decks, we will not, pretty much every single class you can expect us to not get through all the slides, so make sure that you're reviewing those in advance and bringing your questions to class, and if whatever we don't get through, please know that it's your responsibility to get through all of those. So that's the C1. The do one is each week you're going to complete critical thinking exercises, or CTE, and you're going to complete a weekly quiz, and that is the do one. And then you're going to be completing those CTEs individually, and then we are going to have interactive discussions and in-class presentations that you all are going to be responsible for, and that is the teach. And so don't forget to mute your line if you would, please. And if you could just know that it's a great way for you to really showcase what you're learning, to hear from your peers. You know, when you meet in these small groups that we'll talk about, it's a fantastic opportunity. I've gotten really positive feedback from students in the past about how much they learn when they kind of do the work on the front end, you know, with themselves, and then meet in the small group to kind of discuss and basically hash it out. And we don't always get time to do that, you know, in class. We'll get to some of your questions, but maybe y'all have some other thoughts. And so when you take the time to schedule, you know, short meetings, or even have a Zoom session or some kind of online chat, you know, whatever you guys want to do, you know, will really help you kind of integrate this learning in a much more meaningful way. And so, you know, once you kind of see it and then do it yourself and then teach the class, which you will do, we will have 3 in-class presentations from 3 groups each week, starting next week. And so once you kind of do that, you've kind of covered everything. And so you're much more able to take this information, actually, you know, have it sink in and be able to call on it for, you know, at later times. I'm going to kind of skip over all these, but please know that just in general, it's really important to me that we have an open and respectful learning environment. A lot of the material that we're going to cover is going to touch on some things that are hopefully not really too controversial, but just that may be new and different for some people. And it's really important that we all know that this is a learning environment. And so I want you to bring your questions. I want you to bring your challenges. I want you to bring your confusion, and feel safe to do so. No one should feel, especially in such a intentional learning space, nobody should feel like they're going to be judged if they, you know, ask a certain question. So please, you know, check yourself if you feel like you're, you know, judging other people when they're asking questions, and just know that it's really important to me that that everybody feels like they can, you know, speak up when they need to, and you know, ask any kind of question. I certainly believe that there are no stupid questions, and I welcome them all. As time allows. And because we do have a very short time together each week, sharing the floor is really important. If you've spoken up a couple times, you know, we have a big class, like, you know, try to make sure that you're not monopolizing our very limited time. So that's really important to me as well. Is there anything about this that you all would add that you don't see here as far as creating a safe and respectful learning environment? This is sort of my take on it, but I thought you all might have some other items to add. Well, if you think of anything in the future, feel free to email me, and I will certainly add it and discuss it next time. I'm going to skip right over this because you've had it in your orientation, but it's just a reminder. Plagiarism is a really, really big deal. This one, because your grade is based on weekly quizzes, this doesn't really apply to those, but I mean, it applies in terms of academic integrity and, you know, not cheating. But plagiarism itself has to do with, you know, written work or presentations, things like that. So just be careful with regard to your CTEs, and certainly what you submit for extra credit. If you choose to submit extra credit, the plagiarism issues certainly apply. I have a lot of really helpful writing resources. Some of them speak specifically to plagiarism, including self-plagiarism, which is also plagiarism. So make sure that you review those. They're relevant to this course and very much to any course that you will take. A little bit about this course. It is a required foundation course. We go over human development and behavior, risk and resilience, you know, brain development, neurophysiology, and how the environment influences all of these processes. That's really key. You know, the social workers are designed to understand human behavior. We're designed to work with vulnerable populations. And it's really, really important that we all have a healthy understanding of what, basically kind of what makes us tick. And that's a really evolving field, and you all will see that as we move through. Also, for those of you who are interested in program development, policy, advocacy, our organizational leadership specialty folks, there are massive implications for prevention and treatment and policies and services. Anything that you could be applied in a micro setting, with an individual or a family, nothing. There are no services or treatments that work in a vacuum. All of those are, made possible through research and policy and funding. And so, those things work really, really go hand in hand. Oh, somebody said they can't hear me. You should be able to hear me. I'm not sure what the problem is. I think most people can hear me. So why is this a required course? I've kind of covered that. I do want to share with you all a little, just some perspective that I have, just kind of a personal story. My grandfather was the head of the Rochester State Mental Hospital. Okay, great, Victoria. Thank you for letting me know. My grandfather was the head of, he was a psychiatrist during the 1950s, and he worked and really pushed the bounds of ethical practice in a really serious way. He operated in the field of psychiatry when prior to things like informed consent, and really did some things that we, would just simply not be possible in the field today. And I share that because I always try, when you're thinking about mental health, I think it's really important to understand that, especially when you think about our understandings of human development and why we do what we do, it's all based on the latest science. So as the research and the science evolves, our understanding of human behavior evolves with it. And with that, are the evolution of our evidence-based practices, our policies, our treatment programs, our prevention programs, all of that evolves with it. And most of the time, there is a massive lag between research and practice. And for example, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study was published in 1997. And here we are in 2017 trying to figure out, how do we actually integrate that information into practice? And we've been doing it for a couple of years, but we still have a long way to go. So that's, we're kind of right on track with that 15-year lag. And so going back to the story about my grandfather, I keep this as a reminder. And so I'm reminding you all now. I have one of his books here that I keep on my shelf, and it is called Modern Psychiatry. And it was published in 1941. And if you ever get the opportunity to look at an old book like this, I encourage you to do so, because there are some very fascinating things in here. And there are diagnoses in here that do not exist anymore. And it really helps. It serves as a reminder to me that says, he did some really, someone in my family, it's slightly shameful, it's a lot shameful, did things like, LSD experiments on prisoners because there was a prison right next door to the state mental hospital, and, just all kinds of things that just would be absolutely unheard of now. But what he was doing was the best thinking of the time. It was the best thinking of the time. And here we are, fast forward to 2017, and we have this DSM-5 that was created over about a decade, I think, that latest revision, with the top, brains in the field. And it's our best thinking right now at the time. It's our best thinking. And our best thinking will continue to evolve. And a lot of the information that we cover in this course, especially that which is related to our understanding of neuroscience and of epigenetics, it's so much, It's totally in development. So the picture that I'm going to paint for you and that you will begin to understand just simply based on a very small amount of journal articles that I put, it may seem like a lot, it is a lot, but it's not a lot when you think about there were 3,000 articles published on ACEs just in the last year. So there's a wealth of information out there. You are getting a little snapshot at a little piece in time, at a piece in time. And I encourage you to stay abreast of the field as you move forward. I encourage you to stay curious, to stay open to this information and evolve, that as it evolves, to never, ever, ever think that you know it all. I certainly don't. You all don't. But you have so much opportunity to contribute to the field because you are learning this information in your in your studies, in your education. So I'm really excited for what you will do. There are huge implications for this content, just how it translates to practice, to research. It's, how we work with clients. So that, in a nutshell, in addition to everything that says on the slide, is why this course is required. It allows social workers to better understand and assess clients and their issues when we know how the brain works, when we know how the environment influences our genetics. We can potentially create more effective programs. We can drill down to more specific issues that are affecting our clients. We can create even better societies for people to live and raise their children in. Okay, I could kind of talk about this. I'm sure you can tell. Kind of talk about this a lot, so I'll keep going. I'm not going to read these. These are your course competencies. They're also articulated in your syllabus, so know them and just know that this is kind of the map of where we're headed. Also, with this course, and in the spirit of working in with a subject matter that's constantly evolving, you do not have a textbook. There's just, the textbook would be out of date as soon as it was printed. And so we just focus on journal articles. I update them as much as I can. But for right now, there's just a whole host of goodies. Some are a little older than others. Some are really new. But you are, all of the material that you need for this course is available on Canvas and namely under the modules tab. Okay, so coursework. So this is listed in Canvas under the general information. There's a little bit more detail about this, but essentially you can expect to spend about 10 to 12 hours per week in this course. It's a huge amount of reading. It's preparation for your CTEs, and it's meeting with your groups and preparing for your in-class presentations, which you only have to do once. And it's participating in the weekly sessions, and if you miss these, viewing the recorded lectures. There's also a host of videos. I think videos really, really, really do an amazing job of bringing this super dense material to life. There's some really fantastic videos. Most of them are under 10 minutes. So you may see a list of like 5 videos, but they're probably all very short. The epigenetics and the sex and gender unit have 2 very long documentaries. The epigenetics one, Ghosts in Your Genes, is about an hour. And the sex and gender one is about an hour and a half, I think. So just know that those 2 units have some extra time. They are absolutely phenomenal videos that will explain so much, and I think you'll really enjoy them. That's why I keep them around. So just know that it's important to plan, it's important to prioritize, that you will need to spend a lot of time for this particular course on top of everything else. So for each class, so this is kind of your weekly checklist. You are going to have vocabulary that is required under each unit starting next week. You will have vocabulary, a list of vocabulary, so you can see what that is. The vocabulary is relevant just to your understanding of some of those words in the articles you may have never heard of. The vocabulary lists are not exhaustive. If you see something in an article that you don't know what it is, just look it up. I do it constantly, no shame. There's all kinds of new words I learn every time I pick up an article. So there's vocabulary lists, there's required readings and videos, there are PowerPoint lectures. I will be posting my lectures, and if you see SKS in the title, that means it's mine. If you see TCO, that means it's from Dr. Terry Combs-Orm. And she is my mentor and is pretty much the reason that we even talk about neuroscience at the College of Social Work here at UT. And she's absolutely phenomenal. And she has recorded lectures for each of these units, except for, I think, the sex and gender unit. And so they are absolutely wonderful. And I encourage you all to review those, maybe even review them before you read your articles, or, whatever process works for you. They're about 30 minutes. Sometimes there may be two that are 30 minutes each, but typically they're about 30 minutes. And so we will, when you come to class each week, I will have expected you to review those recorded lectures, and then we will go over whatever we can based on my slides, which are typically very, very similar, but it's really helpful for you to kind of hear this in different tones and different ways. And also, there's kind of no such thing as repetition with this, or I guess let me reframe. Repetition is a really good thing when you're learning this kind of material. So, if I show a video during the lecture that was also posted online, you're probably going to learn something new. I've seen some of these videos 10 times and I still hear something new. So that's kind of the deal with the lectures. The next thing that you'll be doing every week is these critical thinking exercises, which again, you will be completing individually, and then you will be meeting in your groups to prepare for an in-class presentation. You don't necessarily have to meet in your groups unless you want to. If your group is not presenting that week, that's totally up to you. The group list is posted. It's posted under the CTE overview module, so you can go in there and look up which group you are in. The Nashville and the online students are all kind of listed together, but you can see it says online, and then you'll see your list underneath that. It's just in one document. It's not two separate documents. So I'll go over the CTEs in more detail in a second. And then the last thing that you will do each week is a quiz. And I will talk more about the quizzes in a second. Okay, here we go. So your grade is based on 4 weekly quizzes. They're worth 25% each. And if you so choose, you may submit a extra credit assignment, which is actually your CTE. So that's a little bit of a carrot for you to make sure that you're completing these CTEs. You can submit for a possible 2 points over and above your average. So if you have a 94 or an 89 average, that can, change your letter grade. So that is a really good opportunity for some of you. For some of you, it won't. If you have a 91 or something, 2 points is only going to get you a 93. So that one, won't make much, won't make any difference in terms of your final grade. If you would like to submit for extra credit, just because even if it won't do your grade, I will still give you feedback because you did the work and you're interested in learning. I will just slide yours to the bottom of the pile when I'm grading at the end of the semester, but I will still get you feedback. The grading values in this course are listed here. These are, you should see for all of the courses that you take in this program. We have a very high range for an A, which is 95 to 100. Most are like a 92 or 93 to 100. So know that A's are challenging to get. I expect your typical bell curve in this class, so I don't expect everybody to get an A. I expect most people to get B's or B pluses. Getting an A in this program means that you're consistently exceeding expectations. It doesn't mean that you do everything. It means that you do everything and then some, and you do it really well consistently. So that may be a little bit of shift for many of you in terms of your expectations. Many of you are coming into this program with, 3.9s and 4.0s and things like that. So just know this is a different a different yardstick that we use here at the college, and so just kind of know that going in. Okay, I want to clarify a little bit about the quizzes. So again, this can get a little confusing because you have to do a lot of work around the CTEs, and the CTEs are not graded, but the quizzes are graded. And that's actually because I simply can't grade 84 papers each week for a month. I just am not capable of that, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I'm not. So your grade will be based on quizzes, and I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you complete the quiz, which is per unit. Each one of these units here, you know, epigenetics, brain and behavior, stress and trauma, and sex and gender. And, you know, we have class Thursday evening. So I think after class would be a great time if you have time to take the quiz, or Friday morning or sometime Friday, just so that you can kind of get it done. And once you take the quiz, you can kind of just put this unit out of your head for a minute and then start focusing on the next week. We move really, really quickly, and there's not a lot of lag time. So that is my recommendation. That's also what is articulated in the syllabus, is that the quizzes are due. That is simply because I need you to move through, and you need you to move through the readings and all of the course material and not get behind. The quizzes can be completed up until July 6th. I absolutely do not recommend that you do that. It will be harder. You will have covered so much material, you will probably not be able to remember certain things. But just know that if you get sick or have a bad week or something like that, it's still open. You're not going to get counted off. And I think that's important, especially because each one of these quizzes is worth 25%. So I wanted to give that little cushion in there, just because everybody's, you know, sometimes life happens and it's the summer and y'all are just starting out and all that kind of stuff. But I do not recommend that. A note about the quizzes: when they are available, they will become available starting next week, and they will be posted on a rolling basis. And each time you open the quiz, you will know exactly what the quiz covers. So it will say, you know, quiz 1 is on genetics and epigenetics. I'm also going to roll the resilience articles from this week into that quiz as well. So you will know kind of what you're getting into. The quizzes are all multiple choice. There's no short answer, or there may be some true false, but it's going to be mostly multiple choice. One thing, I know that many of you may, just from past experience with past students, I know that some of you may experience test anxiety. Just know that I give you ample time. I'll give you about 50 minutes to complete the quiz. The quiz probably will only take you about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes maybe. I just want to put that cushion in there because I need your amygdalas offline and I need you not stressed. So do what you need to do to make sure that you're not stressed when you're taking these quizzes. Quizzes are not everybody's, you know, strong suit. Some people take them really well. I personally am a horrible test taker, so I feel for you, any of you all who are in the same boat. But truly, they are going to be a good judge of kind of what you know, what you don't know. But if you particularly are affected by test anxiety, reach out to me if you feel like you don't do very well on the first quiz, and I may be able to brainstorm with you. I certainly will try to see if there's some ways to help you out for next week. I've had some students in the past feel like they were, you know, doing all the readings and doing everything they needed to do, and they just really weren't performing well on the quizzes. But then once we kind of talked through it, and I kind of saw and asked questions about, you know, what was their thinking on, you know, a certain question or another, they did very, very well after that. So if you feel like you're in that boat, please reach out to me. I want you to do well. I believe that you can. Some of my best students are online students, so I have very high expectations for you all. Another note about the quizzes is that some of the questions will be so easy that you will think that I'm trying to throw you a curveball. And I want to say to you very clearly that I am never trying to trick you. Some of the questions are just built in there because some are going to be harder, some are going to be easier. So I'm really not ever trying to be intentionally tricky. Some of the questions just will be, you'll be able to easily narrow out 2, and then you'll have 2 that you're kind of like, well, I'm not really sure. And that's just a good quiz question. So, but just know that I expect you, sometimes it catches students off guard. They're like, wait, this is graduate school. I wasn't expecting such an easy quiz, but hopefully they're not all that easy, but I do anticipate that some of the questions will be easier than others. So don't get tripped up on that if you think it's kind of too easy, too good to be true. It's probably just an easy question. So don't second guess yourself is my advice there. Are there any questions before I jump into the CTEs? Okay. So again, yes? Was there a question? Okay. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. Ashley, great question. So the how the quizzes work, and this is articulated in the syllabus. So the course outline in the syllabus is your map for our time together this semester. So each week, the quiz, so next week is our epigenetics unit. So next week you will take your epigenetics quiz. So when I say take your quiz starting Thursday, June 8th, that means it's on your first quiz, which is on Unit 1, which covers genetics, epigenetics, and then I'm going to cover a little bit of the resilience stuff from the 2 articles this week as well in that first quiz. Then the following week will be the quiz on brain and behavior, and then the following week will be stress and trauma, and then the following week will be sex, gender, and sexual orientation. So it's all just kind of flows. So I just recommend that kind of after class, so not today, but starting next week, after class, that will be the quiz that, so whatever we talked about in that class, that's what the quiz will be on. And then again, I'm going to have specific instructions for each quiz. So when you open that, or before you open that quiz, you should read all those instructions, because they're going to tell you what unit it is, what material it covers, how many questions there are, and how much time you have. So the intention is like you always know what you're getting into, especially if you kind of get off track with the weeks or something like that, or you kind of work way ahead or you fall behind or something. It's I always want you to know exactly what you're getting into before you open it. Because once you open it, you have to complete it. Okay. So the purpose of the CTEs, again, that's a very critical part of this See One, Do One, Teach One methodology. It's really important that you take the time to do this. Okay. Alex, I'll answer your question. So they will be, all of the quizzes will be, it's kind of a both and. The articles feed the quizzes directly, but sometimes there will be questions that are more sort of general, that are just related to vocabulary. So that's why you can't forget about the vocabulary list. So I definitely recommend you kind of start there, or at least in there or something. So some questions will be based on vocabulary and will be sort of more general, and then some of them will be based on specific readings. If they are based on a specific reading and it's not general, typically I will say according to, so-and-so. And so I kind of do that just to help you out a little bit, just to be a little bit more obvious about where the information's coming from. So that way, if you get it wrong, you can kind of go back to that article and kind of check in and see what you missed. You will get your grades on the quizzes immediately following. So as soon as you hit submit, you'll know what you got. You won't, however, be able to see the correct responses until everybody has completed the quizzes, which honestly will probably not be until the end of the semester. Okay, so CTEs are due to be completed for yourself. You don't turn them into me. They're not graded, but they are excellent tools for you to make sure that you actually understand the material that you've read. If you can effectively write a CTE, it means that you understand the material, period. If you can write about something, you know that you really understand it. You know, some people are really good at kind of muddling through quizzes, but maybe can't actually write the CTE, and that's a problem. So if you really want to know how you're doing in this class, then write that CTE. It's wonderful. There are also exemplars. There's a exemplar CTE module that has about 5 really, really good CTEs from past students. They had a 250 word limit. You all have a 300 word limit. So they, you know, had even higher expectations. So they're really fantastic. But they're a good kind of barometer for you to check. I recommend that you maybe try to write one first and then look at the exemplars and just kind of, you can kind of compare and contrast and see how you've done on those. So they're a really wonderful way for you to actually apply this information. And of course, they feed directly into your in-class presentations. Again, there's more information about why this is so important. I want to highlight number 5. It does enhance your abilities to write critical scholarly papers and also your general writing skills. This material is so intense or so dense that if you can synthesize it into very short, you know, you're basically writing a brief, you will take that skill with you for the rest of your life. I cannot tell you how effective this like format is. I am truly sorry that I can't read every single one of yours and give you feedback every week, but it really, it's a really wonderful opportunity. People in the real world out in the field, I'm sure many of you know this already, they don't read 20-page papers. They read a 1-page brief or a 2-page brief. And so if you can synthesize this information, it's, you know that you really get it. Also, when you're talking to your clients, you know, you don't have 3 hours to talk about the history of epigenetics, you know, with your parents that you're seeing or your foster parents. If you work in child welfare, you don't have 3 hours to sit down with a juvenile judge. You know, you probably have 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 50 minutes. So it's really important that you find ways to really streamline, really synthesize this information. I've got some tools from the Frameworks Institute to help you with that as well. Again, this is just saying that the material that we cover in class is not the be-all, end-all. All of this entire course is set up for self-directed learning. It's very much a flipped classroom because y'all are going to be teaching most of the class. And, you know, so it's really that 10 to 12 hours or so outside of class is really where you're going to be doing most of the learning. You know, our time together in these Zoom sessions is to ask questions, to clarify things, and to learn from your peers. Just a note about the CTE format when you submit it for extra credit. Obviously, you need to use APA style. You do not need to write an abstract or include a title page. You just need to write your 300 word CTE and your reference page, which absolutely you do need. And your in-text citations do not count towards this 30-page or 300 word limit. And there's more under the CTE overview. There's all of this stuff in great detail. Similar to the reference page, you know, when you submit this, do not cite textbooks or Wikipedia. If you find something on Google or Google Scholar, you know, make sure it's from a reputable source. There's also a horde of more information under the extra cool stuff module, which is at the very end of the module section. So just know that, you know, when you're writing this, don't just list your articles. You know, you'll want to, you know, make sure that they're actually integrated into your paper. I know that's kind of self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised what I've seen before. Okay, so if you do choose to submit your best CTE for extra credit, you have to submit it in Word or PDF format. I can't, any other type of document doesn't really work in the system. So, and again, more details can be found on Canvas. There's that whole module on this. I've kind of mentioned the writing resources. There's a huge amount of information. You know, don't forget about things like sentence structure and organization and spelling and all that good stuff. Yes, that is correct. The CTEs do not get submitted on Canvas, and they do not get graded, as I have articulated. Okay, so the expectations for the weekly class presentations, so this is the teach one part of the methodology for this course, is that, oh, good question, Ariel. So Amber asked if there's a minimum number of sources that are needed for the CTEs. I recommend that you try to use all of the required readings, or at the very least, just kind of the vast majority. You can kind of think of like 75% of the readings or something like that. That is ideal. You're also welcome to do your own research and find additional articles that are not listed in the required reading materials. However, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. You need to stay grounded in those required articles. They're there for a reason. And then you can find your additional ones on top of that. Some of the CTE questions are about a very specific topic, like, you know, foster parents or traumatic brain injury or something that is a little more contextual. So some of the best CTEs that I have read integrate those people kind of go out and do research on those contextual issues and kind of bring that in to the discussion. So there's not like a hard limit. There's also not a hard number of vocabulary words that you need to integrate, but just it's always kind of the most you possibly can. Some of the CTEs online under the exemplars have 9 citations in a 250-word document. They're absolutely beautiful. So just know that it is possible. If you're doubting me, go look at your peers. Your peers are awesome. They've done cool stuff. So speaking of peers, you have been assigned to a small group of 4 to 5 people. I know that many of you all will be in different time zones. That's why I'm only asking you to do this one time. You know exactly when you have to present in advance, and all of that's listed under the CTE overview module. There is a document for you to download and find your group. Each week, it says one group, actually 3 groups, will give a 5 to 10 minute presentation on their CTE and lead the class in a discussion. So basically, you just need to keep that whole thing to no more than 10 minutes. So I will carve out 30 minutes only for this group presentation. It will always be the last thing that we do, so we won't start here. So if class starts at 5:30, I will start the class presentations at about 6:30, maybe 6:20 or so. So just know, I know some people have gotten some emails, they don't get off work until 6 or something like that. So just know that it is not, it's going to be kind of later in the evening. I sort of did that on purpose. Also, if for some reason you know that you're going to be gone, or absolutely, you're not able to make an accommodation with your work or whatever for the time that you were slotted to present, I'm not going, because there's just so many of you, I'm not going to switch your group or anything like that. I will just expect you to have a conversation and support your group in that presentation, and send them your CTE, send them your recommendations, have a conversation with them, and then they can present on your behalf. I'm doing that because they're not graded, and it's just the least complicated thing to do in this scenario. So what these 5 to 10 minute presentations should include is an analysis of the CTE question, which those are listed both in Canvas and in your syllabus, so you have those all up front. You want to integrate those unit concepts and vocabulary, and that's specifically information from the reading. Each member should speak at least once, all of you who are there. I definitely encourage the frameworks perspective, which I will talk about in the last few minutes that we have. And then if you can, ask a question to the class, something that you kind of felt stuck on, or something you like some more input on, or something just to challenge the class. Sometimes when you do an analysis and you meet in groups, what I've heard from students in the past is that basically some of the best experiences they had in this class is when they met in those small groups. So make sure that you're taking your time to at least one time this summer. You have a whole month, meet at least one time together. You will learn so much from hearing from your from your classmates about just their whole perspective on this. People bring so much rich discussion to these CTEs that sometimes y'all don't agree. When you're doing your analysis, sometimes all four of you or all five of you may come to a consensus, but sometimes you may disagree on stuff. If you kind of get to that point, just present both sides when you're giving your presentation. No need to kind of overly stress about that. Just bring, your presentation is really just kind of a summary of all of your CTEs that you did individually. So it's really just trying to kind of pull things together. And, I'll give you all a little bit of feedback or ask some questions when you're presenting. So then, the following week, the next group will be able to kind of incorporate that into your style of presenting. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions. I've kind of been answering the questions in the chat box along the way, but this is kind of a big deal. It also may feel really strange that I'm asking you to do so much work that's not graded, but I promise you that this is the way that you are going to integrate and assimilate all of this new information and actually be able to use it. The quizzes are really just kind of perfunctory. They don't, they mean a lot for your grade, obviously. They're very important, but you don't necessarily learn anything through taking a quiz. A quiz is a straight assessment. And so everything else outside of the quizzes is focused on your learning. It's focused on, increasing your understanding and your ability to actually apply this information in the field, which is the whole purpose. So, any questions about this? Feel free to email me if something comes up. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left for this evening. And I am going to spend a few minutes just talking about the Frameworks Institute. Yes, the presentation is not great. So you can find your assigned group. I posted an announcement, and the extra credit is you can submit that on Canvas. There'll be some more instructions later. It's at the end of the semester, but it'll be on Canvas. The assigned groups, I posted an announcement this afternoon that has the document attached to it. It's also under the CTE overview module. So the Frameworks Institute, for those of you all who have not heard of this, it is an institute for the study and application of communication science. And it has worked specifically with the Harvard Center on the Developing Child, a bunch of other, Alberta Family Wellness, the state of Tennessee here on developing metaphors to explain some of these highly complex concepts that we are going to talk about in this class, like neuroscience, neurophysiology, human development, epigenetics. And they have found a way to explain this complicated information in a very succinct way and in a way that combats a lot of the preconceived notions that people have about human development through things like culture and specific family culture and how they were raised and just, kind of everything that you learn through osmosis. Just over the course of your life. There's a lot that you may not even realize that you make assumptions about other people, and using the frameworks information gives you an opportunity to kind of shift that focus when you're actually working with clients out in the field. Okay, so Ashley, your question about the use of vocabulary words, I recommend that you review the exemplar CTE, and that will kind of give you, some idea about using the vocabulary words in your CTEs. Also, the CTE overview section, I've answered a lot of these questions. There's hordes of information there about kind of how to do that. When you use a vocabulary word, you don't have to say epigenetics is blankety blankety blank. If you use it appropriately in a sentence, then I'm going to know that you've understood it, and you're going to know that you've understood it. So I think those exemplars may help with that as well. So the Frameworks Institute, really has provided these amazing way to present this information. And so for each one of these units, so this is information that's not yet posted online, but I'm going to post it, and I will post an announcement when it's available and tell you where it is. But each week I will give you a different metaphor. There's always a video that goes with that metaphor, and I'm going to post I'm going to post the documents. I only have copies, and I don't know if y'all can see this, but it looks like this, and has some information on the back. And so I have these metaphor sheets for each one that will go with each one of these CTEs. And I'm hopeful that you will use some of this metaphor information in your CTEs and in your presentations. It's a great way to talk about, again, this is communication science. It's a great way to talk about this really complex information in a very simple way. It also just is going to help your learning. So like the video that was posted under today's unit, that was tipping the resilience scale. That is this resilience scale metaphor. Thinking about resilience as a scale really expands the opportunity to really kind of widen the lens and widen the discussion that you're able to have, because it combats preconceived notions about people. Things like, well, that kid just has bad parents and they're gonna, they're just too far gone. By the time they get to juvenile justice system, that they just, there's no hope. Kind of this whole idea. And people think this, even people in our field think this, but it's just simply not true. Social workers are agents of hope and change. So we need to believe, and this science shows that people really can change, but it actually shows how they can change. And it shows the difference between individual responsibility, family responsibility, and then the wider responsibility of societies and systems and communities and neighborhoods and things like that. So the framework stuff is totally relevant to everything that we're going to be talking about, and I encourage you all to use it. One way for you all to use it is to use an explanatory chain, which is a way for you to kind of connect the dots between some of this kind of wider information. And so the chain has kind of a cause, it has links in the chain, just like an actual chain, and then it has kind of a broader kind of consequence, and then creates a solution, including a solution that can be achieved through collective action or systems change. Is a really great way to frame this. For the CTE specifically, when you're kind of applying this framework to your CTEs, some of those ask you to speak directly to parents, because oftentimes that's really what you're going to be doing in the real world, and what many of you all are doing already. You would be creating solutions that the parent can actually do. So as opposed to kind of collective action or system change, kind of policy sort of stuff, you will be thinking about this through the lens of, what does this, foster parent, for example, with the first CTE, you'll be, it's kind of like, how do you help explain about how to mitigate the risk for, violent and addictive behavior for this, baby that they're adopting. So it's a very realistic, real world example, and this is a great kind of framework for you to use. And I know that we are pretty much out of time, but I do, just to give you an example, I want to show you kind of an example of what this kind of building this explanatory chain actually looks like. And this is an example from a training that I went to, actually, I think just last week or the week before. And this, the purpose of using this, this kind of framework, it helps people find common ground that are in different sectors. And so it's a great way, it's a very effective way to kind of bring consensus through, with groups of, people in foster care, people in early learning, and people in human services, and people in, policy. It's like you can find this common ground when you learn how to talk about something in a universal way, and by really kind of addressing some of these cultural understandings of certain issues. So an example of an explanatory chain that connects diapers to health. I mean, who knew that diapers were so kind of integrally related to health? So I'm going to give you two different examples of this, and then open it up for questions. So again, you've got these kind of links in the chain. So you've got a cause that's sort of connecting the two kind of bigger issues out there. You have kind of link one and maybe another link that you want to bring in. Then you kind of have this final consequence. And this kind of brings this in this universality aspect. So it kind of takes, helps us understand this is kind of affects all humans, or, systems or societies. And then here's this place for the solutions. So the example here says that the cause is, diapers, or kind of the issue at hand. So for this one, it says diapers can account for up to 14% of a low-income family's income. That's a massive amount of, massive percentage just on diapers, just on a basic necessity for a family with young children. So for the CTE1 example, you would be thinking about the cause as you have this sort of perceived inherent biological risk of a baby who is born to parents who have a history of violence and addiction. So that's sort of the kind of the issue. So then it's sort of like, well, how do you explain this to parents? So in this example, the first link is to reduce spending and conserve diapers. Children may be changed less often, and less frequent changes can lead to more frequent rashes and infections. So when you think about it, there are people, and this is very true. I had an example from a student in class just this afternoon that said, yes, I've actually been in this situation with some of my previous clients. So families are really affected by access to diapers and may make the choice to kind of leave their baby in a wet diaper because they simply can't afford to change them all the time. So the final consequence of this issue is that families need increased access to health services, including emergency room visits. So you're kind of jumping from this sort of individual micro issue to a kind of a larger macro issue. And the solution that these folks were focused on is eliminating the sales tax on diapers would help support families and their children's health. So they sort of found an actual solution for this issue. So that was connecting diapers to just kind of health, just health in general. This is sort of the same issue, and it's connecting diapers to early learning. So that's like two things that people just might say, okay, well, a diaper is sort of like food, or, just kind of a basic necessity. Then you have early learning. Like, how are we connecting these two things? So using this method allows you, in very few words also, to make some pretty strong connections. So this one, they have the cause framed as the high cost of diapers places a financial strain on families and childcare providers. The first link is childcare and early education programs require families to supply diapers. If they cannot, their children cannot attend childcare programs. So what is the impact? And so here's the consequence. Young children miss out on valuable early learning. So that's a really big deal. When you think about, people may not be able to send their children to daycare, which is a really big deal, simply if they cannot afford diapers. And, who knew that these things were connected? I mean, unless you're in that world, working, you may not realize that. And then the proposed solution here under this frame is that the California State Legislature is proposing a $50 credit for TANF-enrolled families to use on diapers. So it's actually coming up with a solution. It's presenting the problem, it's presenting the impact, and then it's presenting a solution. And I think that that's a really great way I encourage you all, if you can't quite get there on your CTE, that's fine. But I kind of encourage you all to think about it in this way. It's just a great opportunity for you to learn some additional skills, because you're not just learning the content in this course, you're learning ways to talk about it. So I do have a question. Y'all can hang with me for just a few more minutes. What might you put in this slot if you wanted to extend this chain out? Who are some of those other players or sectors that may be impacted by this particular issue of, financial strain on families, the diapers causing this issue of basically preventing children from participating in early learning opportunities? Putting you all on the spot. You can speak up, or you can write in the chat box. Yes, Ellen.
I was just thinking that, if they miss out on those early learning opportunities, they're going to have poor school performance overall, especially in those formative elementary school years.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have extended this chain and brought in a whole other host of people who may be invested in supporting your cause of, decreasing the cost of diapers for low-income families. Absolutely, great example. Yes, absolutely, Candace. You have the same point as well about having children being, kindergarten ready, and we know that when kids are not ready for kindergarten, they're already behind and already have a much lower chance of even graduating high school, just depending on how ready they are for kindergarten. Yes, Hannah, absolutely. Perfect example. One parent could have to stay at home, which will create, poverty for the whole family. So you may have to go from a 2-income household to a 1-income household, or even worse, what if this low-income family has a single parent? And if the child cannot go to daycare or early learning center, the parent has to miss work. So that's even less money that they even have to buy diapers or food or pay their electric bill or pay their rent. Or, there's this, on and on and on. There's this huge kind of ripple effect that can happen just simply focused on one thing that is as simple as diapers, has these massive ramifications. And this is actually a true scenario that the California legislature proposed this $50 credit specifically for TANF. And, those families are, that's temporary assistance to needy families. So already knowing, you're already kind of, at this poverty threshold. So it's just an opportunity for you all to think about, how to talk about this information. So prior to next week, I will be posting these more information about these metaphors for you to use. You already have the resilience scale metaphor available to you that will apply to the epigenetics unit. So that's already up on actually today's unit, as I mentioned, is the Tipping the Resilience Scale. The Frameworks Institute also has a whole lot of information for you all to peruse. And yes, absolutely, Shandy, absolutely, missing school is a horrible potential for kids. So I know I have covered a lot. It is 6:43. So I'm going to stop there. As I mentioned, there's a lot more slides on this lecture for you all to review. Are there any questions or comments or concerns before we go? Hopefully this will be the most that I'm talking in our future classes, and I will be turning this over to you all. You're very competent and capable hands. I'm just reading your chat. Children must begin to act out due to not being able to understand the material. Yes, that could be true. That could definitely be true. Okay, so I'll give y'all another few minutes. Oh, okay. Good question, Alicia. So Alicia asked, how do you suggest we meet in our small groups? You all will have access to everybody's name, obviously, because it's listed in that document. But you should be able to just locate people's email through Canvas and email your folks. Also, it's a handy dandy little trick for you all to know over the next year is on UTK's website, up in the right-hand corner, there's a handy dandy little feature that says People Finder. And you can actually search by somebody's name and you will get their, whatever contact information that you all filled out when you entered this program. So if you put a phone number or a email, well, you should have everybody's UTK email. But that's another way to find people. If you're really struggling with that and you can't find them for some reason, just email me and I will try to help you out on that. So I definitely recommend that you are, looking at that as soon as possible. Good question. Any other questions? Well, I hope you have a fantastic week. I am available to support you. So if you get stumped by something or can't figure something out, chances are the answer is on Canvas or in the syllabus. But if you have looked thoroughly there and you still can't figure it out, please email me and I will respond to you. And I hope that you have a fantastic week. And I will see you next week at 5:30. Good night.